Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot, but the Grinch, who lived north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. He didn't know God loved him. That was the reason. He thought that Christians' heads weren't screwed on just right. He thought they were crazy and looked for a fight.
God doesn't love me, and God doesn't care. Hypocritical Christians keep their hands in the air, worshiping Jesus, who doesn't exist. It's just an excuse to buy shiny new gifts.
I think that the real reason, the one most of all, was that the Grinch's heart was 2 sizes too small. Broken and battered as years had gone by, with him thinking that Jesus was all just a lie. But whatever the reasons, the presents or ruse, he sat there on Christmas Eve, hating the Who's, staring down from his cave with a sour, Grinchy frown at the warm, lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a wreath.
And they're setting out presents.
He snared with a sneer.
Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here.
Then he growled with Grinch fingers nervously drumming.
I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming.
For tomorrow he knew all the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They'd rush for their toys. And then, oh the noise, 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 noise. That's one thing he hated. The noise, 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 noise. Then the Who's young and old would sit down to feast. And they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, 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 feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beast, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with church bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Who's would start singing. They'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing, 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 sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought,
I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how?
Then he got an idea, an awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea.
I know just what I'll do.
The Grinch laughed in his throat, and he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat, and he chuckled and chuckled.
What a great Grinchy trick. With this coat and this hat, I'll look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer.
The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No. The Grinch simply said,
If I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead.
So he called his dog Max. Then he took some red thread and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some empty old sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max.
Giddy up, Max. Pull the sleigh on down towards the homes where the Who's lay a snooze in their town.
All their windows were dark. Quiet snow filled the air. All the Who's were all dreaming, sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square,
This is house number 1.
the old Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, But if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two. Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little whose stockings all hung in a row.
These stockings, I say, are the first things to go. These people say they're Christian. They say that they try. Then why do they argue, steal, blaspheme, and lie? They do what they want every Saturday night, then wake up on Sunday and think they're all right. This season right here is a perfect example of how greedy they are. Just look at this sample.
Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole room, and he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums. And he stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch, very nimbly, stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimney. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's Feast. He took the Who Pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out that icebox as quick as a flash, while the Grinch even took their last can of Who hash.
I have stuffed all the food up the chimney, yippee! And now it is time to stuff up the tree.
And the Grinch grabbed the tree, and he started to shove, when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around, then noticed several little Who children who should not have been there.
What's going on here? They should be a-snoozing. It's Christmas Eve. This is so confusing. I'll creep a bit closer and see what they're doing.
But the Grinch couldn't believe the sight he was viewing. The Who children were kneeled by their beds, but visions of sugar plums weren't dancing in their heads. Instead, they were praying.
Praying? Oh dear! I'll just blink my eyes and it'll disappear. Little children are not thankful. They are full of disgrace. Oh well, while I'm here, I'll just grab that vase.
But he paused as he heard one Who child squeak, and he listened for the voice, quiet and weak.
And one more thing, Jesus is going to say a prayer, thanking you for all the good things you have made.
We thank you for dying and being our Savior and forgive our misbehavior. But if we may, we have one more request. It's the Grinch. Dear Lord, I'm sure you have guessed.
Some people say that he is not good, that he's a mean mischief maker, he's a villain, a scoundrel, a deadbeat, a taker.
Others say that he doesn't know you, Lord. Some say he used to, but never recovered.
Or maybe he's confused and doesn't understand your grace, your compassion, and your mercy.
We'd like to stay up now. It's hard to go, and then he comes to the love we already know.
The Grinch paused for a moment, then coughed a deep voice.
So this Grinch has a choice?
The children looked around, but they didn't see anyone. So that mean Grinchy Claus decided to have some fun.
Don't look around, I'm up here. It's me, God. I've been listening to you talk as you pull and you prod. The Grinch's business is his own, as is yours. Can't you see? And if you're praying for more presents, you're barking up the wrong tree.
The tiny Who children were unsure of what should be said, so they quickly said amen, and jumped into bed. The Grinch looked around with a smirk on his face, and he started to make his way out of that place. The last thing he took was the log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On the walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire, and the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses. The Grinch strolled past the front lawn of Holy Innocents Church. Looking for goodies, he began to search.
There's nothing good here outside this old Who house.
He scanned the front porch and began his abduction. For the flowers and rugs I will make space, but not the nativity. Ugh, what a waste. It was 15:15 dawn, all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze when he packed up his sled. packed it up tight with their presents, the wrappings, the ribbons, the tags, the tinsel, the trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it.
Who to the who's?
He was Grinchishly humming.
They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then the who's down in Whoville will cry boo-hoo. That's a noise, I must say, that I simply must hear.
So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear, and he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started out low, then it started to grow.
Let's go out in the snow.
But the sound wasn't sad. Why, the sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry, very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same.
Thank you, dear God, for your gifts from above. You sent down your Son full of goodness and love, and through him you've shown us a better way of living, a way to eventually join you in heaven.
And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling.
How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags.
And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before.
Maybe this season doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more.
And what happened then? Well, in Whoville they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. He bowed his head and offered a prayer. The Grinch found salvation right then and right there. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light. And he brought back the toys and the food for the feast. And he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast.
So if anyone here wants what I found, ask Jesus to come into your heart right now.
Loving God, help us remember the birth of Jesus, that we may share in the song of the angels, the gladness of the shepherds, and worship of the wise men. Close the door of hate and open the door of love all over the world. Let kindness come with every gift, good, and desires with every greeting. Deliver us from evil by the blessing which Christ brings, and teach us to be merry with clear hearts. May the Christmas morning make us happy to be thy children, and Christmas evening bring us to our beds with grateful thoughts, forgiving and forgiven. For Jesus' sake, Robert Louis Stevenson.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings we bring to you and your kin.